Welcome to Still Woke News. My name is Rain. And first of all, this channel will officially launch in January. But there's some news that has come across that I need to talk about right now. So I have my notes here, okay, because I know how people be doing. The moment you slip up with one little thing, okay, your opposer takes that and runs with it. So here we go. Lawmakers warn Hegseth, Pete Hegseth, okay, who is the Secretary of Defense. Right. Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, okay, may have committed war crimes following second strike report. I'll explain that. Democrats and even some Republicans said Hegseth's orders may have been illegal if a report on his commands to kill survivors of a boat attack are true. Now, the Trump administration, well, Donald Trump just said, and you can go watch it, while he was getting on Air Force One, just said he doesn't know about it. Your commander in chief, okay, he doesn't know about it. But the second strike report is when the armed forces are first given an order to attack, right, someone that is also attacking, meaning that they, wherever they are, the country, the people that they're trying to stop, which supposedly, allegedly were boats that were carrying drugs in the Caribbean. Now, the first attack, the first legal attack says, okay, get rid of them. Get rid of them, right? These people are now fighting back. Now, we're not even sure. The data is not even sure whether or not these people were even a part of any armed forces. Okay? So, on the second report, as they call it, right? On the second report, it is said that he ordered a follow-on attack to kill survivors of a boat strike in September. Now, these survivors mean these people were hanging on to literally probably, pieces of wood and whatever. Okay, they're hanging on. They are of no more threat. Let's make that clear. They are of no more threat. They're not a threat anymore. You destroyed basically everything they've had there that made them a threat. So therefore, we have no data as to, first of all, like I said, whether or not these people were even in the armed forces. So allegedly, Pete Hegseth said, kill them all. Kill them all. That's the second strike, right? The second strike. That's the strike that comes after you've obliterated your enemy. You've obliterated the enemy. They no longer had anything to fight with. It's like you won. You won that battle. Okay? So the second strike to, hey, let's just take them on out. I don't care who they are. Those are my words. Allegedly were said. Okay? Kill them all. The people that survived the first strike that are literally hanging on. Literally hanging on. Right? In the Caribbean. They're hanging on. They have nothing. Okay? They have nothing. Okay, was said, hey, they were given orders to strike again so that even those people that survived the first strike no matter who they were, civilians included, right? So the second strike says, okay, I know we pretty much obliterated them, but I want them all obliterated, allegedly. And this is all allegedly, because you know how people be doing. You know how people be doing. I'm going to get some shirts like that. You know how people be doing. They be spinning everything that's said. It doesn't matter who says it. The news, the New York Times, the New York Post, it doesn't matter, right? So I'm saying all of this is alleged. However, we are given here, I'm reading right now from Politico.com, also receiving information from the Don Lemon Show and also Senator Mark Kelly, who is determined against all odds to try to tell the truth. Okay? Now, when men and women are putting their lives, this is the point I really want to make, because this is seriously against the law. This is seriously against the law. It is against the law. It is against military law. This is what the Republican Party was so upset about when we had 3 congressmen, I think, and 3 senators do the ad that said it was a reminder. They didn't make it up. You are not only required in the military to follow legal orders, and you are also required. It is not a choice. You are also required to not follow illegal orders. But what I'm saying is, when these men and women that are out there in a kind of chaos, where it is a chaos that most of us will never experience unless you have been in the military. And if you have been, you know what I'm talking about. So now you want to put those men and women, right, in the position where they not only are surrounded by the pow, 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 but you want them to be able to stop, think, assess, oh, wait, what am I doing? Like, that's not fair, because they are there and they are trusting their leadership. They are trusting their leadership because the leadership knows they're not out there fighting. They're not out there in the midst of all the noise, the chaos, the unaliving, of the sounds going on. You know what I mean? They're not out there. So they're in a comfy position where they are the ones who are supposed to know what is legal and what is not legal. And their job is to only give legal orders. So I'm not sure what JAG is going to do, right? I'm not sure what JAG is going to do, which is the military justice system, right? I'm not sure. We're going to follow it and see. But the point is that I don't think any of these men and women that committed the second strike should be held accountable. Now, that is just my opinion. Okay? That's my opinion. Because now you're putting that weight on them to also be in the midst of the worst chaos ever. And some of you are going to say, oh, I've been through chaos in my life. Listen, I have my stories too, but I was never in the armed forces. I was never in a position where I can't even count the amount of weaponry that is going on around me, literally. So I've never experienced that type of chaos, and most of you have not, unless you were in that position. And so now you're asking the military men and women, right, to amidst all of this chaos, to also make a decision as to whether or not that next command is legal or is it not legal. What's going, like, some of them may feel and know in their minds like this doesn't sound legal, but you can't expect them to have to even do that. That is your boss's job, to give you only legal orders. That's your boss's job. And you were trained, right, to trust that leadership. And they let them down. And I'm sure it's not the first time. And it won't be the last time. Because we will see whether or not the powers that be, right, have what it takes in them to go at the leaders and say, ultimately, this was your decision. Ultimately, this was your decision. So I've heard that some of those people are not even in active duty anymore. And so they would have to actually reactivate them, right? So anybody out there that's in the military, let me know if I'm incorrect. But I read that you would have to be reactivated in order to be tried, right? For this crime, in my opinion, that shouldn't be, but that's only my opinion. What I want to see is if your leaders will be forced to take responsibility for this, right? So if you want to read it, it's everywhere. This is Politico.com. If you want to check out the Don Lemon Show, it is today's episode where Senator Mark Kelly is talking in a different video about this particular thing. But this is serious, y'all. This is serious. Okay? We can't have our military men and women being given more weight than they already are in when they are in the midst of battle. Right? They might be assuming that you can see something that I can't see right now because I don't know what I'm seeing. Right? So they are dependent upon the leaders who clearly know what is legal and what is not. So stay tuned for more. I'm getting my whole setup here. This will look totally different come January, but it doesn't matter because the message is still the same. The message is still the same. And it's time for people in our government to become accountable instead of being professional spinners of the news. Once again, this is Still Woke News, and I'm Rain. Thank you.